Hey, good Thursday, November 7th, everybody. Great to see you, and hopefully we're having a wonderful day out there. And we do have some pretty active things ongoing, including a ongoing November hurricane just off the coast of the United States currently. That's Rafael, who just impacted Cuba yesterday and now is kind of churning on through the Gulf. And we'll talk about where that storm is going and who it could impact and with what sort of impacts. And then we're going to talk about a major winter storm ongoing across portions of the desert Southwest through Colorado and New Mexico especially. And then to end out the video, we're going to zoom things out and talk about a potential maybe pattern change of sorts coming on down the road. I'll tell you, what are the chances of that happening? And can we finally get some cold air in the eastern United States? It is, again, November 7th, and I really don't think I've had a morning below freezing yet in Charlotte, at least. At least we haven't had one of those really cold mornings or any really kind of cold spells at all. So really kind of some unusual warmth that is continuing to linger across the eastern half of the country. Now, with that said, if you haven't already subscribed, do so. Like the video, comment, let me know where you're watching from, hit that bell for the latest notifications. And then consider sharing with somebody that you think might find the video useful. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and jump on into that forecast. Now, currently looking at the lower 48, again, a couple trouble spots I will go ahead and circle, and then even in the Atlantic, I will circle some areas as well. So notice kind of 4 different areas I have circled. The first one right here, this is, again, an ongoing winter storm over New Mexico and Colorado, and we will talk about that, but I mean, that is some incredible snowfall amounts, and again, we will get there in a moment. The next area right here over South Carolina, North Carolina, and even portions of Georgia and Virginia, a lot of cloud cover. This is due to a plume of moisture that kind of got brought upward out of the Gulf of Mexico and brought some torrential rain overnight, including flash flooding across portions of the Carolinas and Georgia. That is slowly working out of here, but still seeing some lingering rainfall. The next area is down here just off the coast of Florida. This is Hurricane Rafael, former major Hurricane Rafael, right before it made landfall into Cuba yesterday afternoon. And again, a very impressive storm for the first week of November. Not very often when we get hurricanes in November, let alone a major hurricane, as we had there into portions of Cuba yesterday afternoon. And again, we'll talk about Rafael. That'll be the first thing we discuss. And then behind it, we have an area to watch or an area to monitor for potential development back out towards Puerto Rico, the Northern Antilles, and kind of surrounding areas. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and dive right into the tropics and start with Rafael. Again, a pretty impressive looking storm this morning, again, especially for the end of the first week of November, and not far off the coast of the United States. In fact, we did have tropical storm warnings up for the Keys. We had some pretty good swells out there. And probably even getting some pretty good wave action just in general along the southwest coast of Florida. The good news, the storm now pulling away from the Sunshine State and getting further into the Gulf of Mexico. And again, a pretty healthy looking storm, a very small compact storm here with pretty deep convection firing around that center. And you'll notice kind of this ribbony look along the edge. That tells me the storm is ventilating quite well here in the upper levels, again, which is conducive for ongoing strengthening. Now, latest from the National Hurricane Center, what's on the horizon? Let's actually start with this little disturbance out here, and then we'll talk about Rafael next. So this is what I circled, again, just north of kind of Antigua and north of the British Virgin Islands, and kind of just this entire thunderstorm complex in general, having the chance to maybe develop into something. And I'll tell you, right now, the National Hurricane Center only has a 20% chance of development over the next 7 days, but this is a pretty healthy looking wave right now, and it would not take much if it can kind of just cocoon itself a little bit in its own favorable environment, which these storms often are able to do. We very well could get another tropical storm to form out here on the way towards the Turks and Caicos throughout the next couple of days. But right now, again, it is not expected to develop, but we have had times this year where in this exact same part of the world, storms were not expected to develop. And next thing you know, a couple of days later, we have a hurricane. So we definitely need to watch it nonetheless. And again, pretty healthy looking wave right now. And we will monitor that through the next couple of days to see if it can continue that trend of becoming better organized. Now, obviously, though, the bigger concern is probably Rafael right now sitting at about 105 mile an hour category 2 storm. So, impacting Cuba didn't do much to weaken it. Obviously, you can see the previous track here. It just took a little sliver over Cuba there, again, as a major hurricane, and obviously brought big time impacts to that region before getting back into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, the storm has had a pretty major shift in the track, and it's pretty lucky that this is a storm that's not going to make landfall because I can tell you as a meteorologist, or at least soon to be meteorologist, that if we had a track shift this severe over land, we probably wouldn't have heard the end of it here. But again, a couple of days ago, if you remember, the storm was expected to kind of curve up into Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Now expected to just move due west here over the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, even turning south towards the end here, towards the Bay of Campeche over the next week. Now, a couple of things in that is good news. The good news, obviously, no piece of land is currently in the cone. The other good news, environmental conditions are going to really go downhill here into the western Gulf of Mexico and should prevent this from becoming any stronger, but could definitely maintain current intensity over the next day or two before again hitting those harsher conditions probably tomorrow and then into the weekend, and especially early next week, this time by next Tuesday morning and Monday overnight, expected to be really just a meager tropical storm, almost a remnant low at that point due to so much dry air and wind shear impacting the storm. All right, so we can talk about the storm a little bit here, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse here because, one, again, not really going to impact anybody anymore, and two, to be completely honest with you, I'm about tired of talking about the tropics, but we will talk about it because it is important. All right, so latest European, you'll notice again, taking that track like the National Hurricane Center shows, moving due west here into the Gulf of Mexico. And again, just kind of maintains intensity over the next couple of days. But you'll notice by the time we get into this weekend, environmental conditions go downhill. The storm hits that dry air and wind shear and kind of just dies out on approach to Mexico. So it could bring some rain showers and things like that. But again, I think really kind of a shell of itself by the time it gets to any more land. Now, at the same time, again, watching this wave out in the other kind of direction that we mentioned, and we'll need to watch for a possible spin up here. Again, same story with this wave. Environmental conditions are not great. Sea surface temperatures are still warm enough in this region, but we've got some dry air working on through. And we can even on the fly here take a look at the upper level winds because honestly, I did not do that ahead of time. So let's see if the upper level winds are favorable for possible development and not terrible over the region. Again, you'll notice we do have some diverging winds aloft here, so that could definitely help a little bit, fanning the storm out depending on where the center is. So wind shear maybe a little bit definitely, but nothing off the charts here. Sea surface temperatures are fine. Again, it's really dry air that could inhibit that one, but we'll need to watch it because, again, it will have the potential to develop, even if right now it is a low chance. All right, HWRF model, I'll show you one hurricane model as well. Again, it gets this storm out and moving over the Gulf of Mexico and pretty quickly this weekend, again, kills it. And by the time we get into early next week, really just a remnant low with pressures in and around 1,005 millibars on approach to the Mexico coastline. So again, outside of some, bigger wave action than normal over the Gulf of Mexico through the next couple of days and even into the weekend, I really wouldn't expect much more out of Rafael in terms of direct impacts for really anybody in the world in general. So we will watch for that. I will quickly show you ensemble members. These are the GEFS ensembles, and you know what? We'll go ahead and go a whole 10 days out into time to show you. Again, just ignore Rafael because the GFS for some reason has kind of failed to take that track that all the other models are taking. Which is one of the reasons that the NHC had the track so wrong, including myself, I will admit. But the GFS has done pretty good this year, except for weird moments like this where it kind of, diverges off. Did the same thing with Debbie earlier this year, where all the other models kind of had a much more reasonable track after Florida landfall, and the GFS for some reason just did not latch on. But what I will show you on the GFS ensembles, again, none of these ensemble members really developing anything into that region that we're watching. Again, we'll continue to monitor it. But what they are doing is, again, unfortunately, trying to spin something up down into the Caribbean in the medium to long term, which again, not guaranteed, but we will monitor it. But I'm not going to beat a dead horse on that one. Just know we are still watching the potential for hurricane season not completely being over, and the official end is the end of November, so it's not completely crazy to see storms forming, but definitely kind of like an endless nightmare. It feels like a little bit. All right, so what's happening in the lower 48 currently? Let me kind of update you on that. And I like showing you the current surface map, or at least what the model is projecting at the surface right now. I think it does a great job. And then I'm going to start showing the upper levels right afterwards to kind of correlate the two for you and give you a general idea of why we're seeing what we're seeing. So right now, again, we've kind of got pretty zonal flow across the country. And how do I know that? Well, you know what? Actually, it might be better if we start with the upper levels. Let's do that. I think this is going to make more sense. So sitting at about 500 millibars right now, we do have a big time, and I do mean pretty strong bowling ball trough down here into the Four Corners region. And what this is creating is a ton of diffluence aloft. And I throw that term around a lot. What does that mean? Well, right into this region, I want you to notice kind of how the isobars behave. And notice how they kind of separate here at these edges. What that creates is, again, a bit of a vacuum aloft. Again, imagine you have air moving parallel to each other and then they separate. What happens is that creates a void in the atmosphere of no air. So something has to fill it, and air from the surface tries to fill it and begins to rise. And it's all that rising motion that often creates active weather. And sure enough, if I leave what I have circled on there, and then I go back to our surface map, what do we have right there? A ton of snow falling. So one of the beautiful things about meteorology is it all lines up in the end, and this is a great case of that. Which I love it whenever you circle the upper levels and then you go to the surface and it shows what it's supposed to show. It's always fun. Now, what else is happening? Well, we do have a bit of a buckle in the jet stream here, so still very warm temperatures through the southeastern United States is what that's creating, a ridge in the upper levels. Again, just a lot of tropical moisture, a lot of tropical air continuing to lift northward. But you'll notice the jet stream gets a little bit more haywire up here towards the Midwest and into the Northeast. What that tells me is we do have a little bit of a boundary between warmer air to the south and cooler air, at least generally cooler, up into Canada. So that's kind of what we're seeing in the upper levels right now, and it all correlates pretty well to the surface. Again, down here in this tropical air mass, we are seeing showers and even some thunderstorm activity and even flooding due to all that precipitable water and very warm temperatures. To the north, again, I mentioned jet stream's kind of active right here, and look at what we have up here. We've got some snow in Canada. We've got our blue isotherms indicating cooler air. So again, that lines up as well. So that's just a little segment I want to kind of start doing a little bit more in the future. It's kind of correlating the upper levels to the surface. As I've gotten further in my education, I myself even understand it better. I think it's always fun to kind of project that knowledge onward to some new people. Okay, so what's happening currently at the surface, actually, not just what is the model projecting? Well, we'll start in the east and work westbound. Through the Northeast, pretty quiet this morning. We've got a couple showers. Same story down here into Kentucky, up towards Louisville, back down into Memphis and into West Virginia. Again, this is kind of that boundary of our air mass that I talked about, and kind of right along this boundary, we're getting enough convergence and lift to produce some shower and storm activity. Another place we're getting a lot of convergence at the surface over the Carolinas. A ton of rain fell yesterday just south of Columbia into the Midlands and towards the Low Country. So kind of down near Orangeburg County. And into some of these more rural areas down into Allendale and surrounding areas of South Carolina, and even down here into portions of Georgia towards the Statesboro area and back down even into Valdosta. Got a lot of rain, and it is continuing to rain into these regions from the Outer Banks all the way down. And again, that's due to this plume of moisture coming out of the Gulf, combined with some upper level dynamic ingredients that is creating that lift. Now, Florida, a couple showers, especially into the Keys. In fact, these are still related to Raphael, and there is Raphael. Again, you can even see him on radar, so definitely a powerhouse of a hurricane. We're getting a couple just outer bands into extreme southwestern Florida, so watching out for that. And then we'll move towards the central part of the country, and this is where things get pretty hectic, at least in portions of the central part of the country. And I don't really need to point out where that is. Take a look right here. New Mexico, Colorado, it is still snowing. Widespread winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories up for these regions. And even flood watches in here through portions of Texas and Oklahoma. Again, right now, most of the precipitation is over, Colorado and New Mexico, but we are going to get cyclogenesis at the surface to really ramp up this onshore flow out of the Gulf, and that is going to create a ton of rain even into Texas and Oklahoma. So a very impactful storm right now, one that I think is going under the radar a little bit, mainly because just not in a mean way, just not a lot of people live out here into rural New Mexico and rural Colorado outside of the Denver area. But obviously you folks still matter, so we're going to talk about it. All right, severe weather potential does start today. Like I said, that low pressure is going to begin to strengthen. That's going to increase that onshore flow. It's going to increase our instability as well as our kinematics, or our upper level ingredients for severe weather. So you'll notice a slight risk up for San Angelo, Midland, Big Spring, Texas, and that marginal risk all the way back from San Antonio, Austin, Lubbock, Abilene, Texas, and then even into the western suburbs of Fort Worth. And this does include a small tornado threat today in the green. So we will need to watch out for that before we get into tomorrow. And we have another severe weather threat, small, but there, a marginal risk from Dallas over to Fort Worth, Stephenville, back down into Austin, San Antonio, and Kernville, and then even up into the San Angelo area. And then tomorrow, we also have a small tornado threat here into the I-35 corridor, I believe this is what highway runs from Austin to Waco up to Arlington and Fort Worth. You Texas folks, let me know. But I think this is the Highway 35 corridor. Maybe, yeah, there we go. Zoom in, Highway 35, so, or Interstate 35 even, if you will. So need to watch out for that. Again, a couple days of severe weather is possible with this setup. Let's go ahead and dive right into it down here and talk about all of this snow and wintry precipitation that is falling. And kind of move this ahead into time. So this is about right now, and you'll notice just insane amounts of heavy snow are continuing to fall through directions here, southeastern Colorado and into really the entire northern half of New Mexico. But just shower activity increasing through Texas this afternoon as again, that low pressure at the surface begins to strengthen. And we really get all of this upslope flow out of the Gulf. Remember, Texas down here, sea level is about zero, obviously, because you're hitting the ocean. But our terrain values up here towards the Panhandle are, thousands of feet above the surface. So, all this air that's coming out of the Gulf is rising as it's doing that, and that's creating its own lift. That combined with the lift from the low pressure, and that all of that difluence aloft that I showed you earlier in the upper levels is definitely going to create plenty of precipitation. But we will need to watch again. Some of this could be single cellular in nature, which would allow for the chance of one of these storms becoming tornadic as it taps into that low level instability and those kinematic ingredients. But as we go through the overnight, I do expect coverage of precipitation to continue to increase through the region, especially as that low level jet increase is really leading to that upslope flow here. And by the time we're going into this evening, this is about 2 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Just a ton of rain has fallen here, folks, and still snowing into portions of Colorado and New Mexico. You notice this afternoon, still heavy rounds of snow, heavy rounds of rain. We'll need to watch for a flooding threat. Again, I showed you that flood watch earlier into this region. As some of these storms train over the same areas. And this is an area that has gotten a lot of heavy rain over the past week or two as we've entered this new pattern of kind of just mid-latitude cyclone after mid-latitude cyclone, Colorado low after Colorado low, Texas low after Texas low out into this region. Has definitely led to, an increase in moisture content in the soil. So that could lead to some flooding on top of all of this rain. Then we get into tomorrow afternoon. Again, just a very wet, rainy afternoon and another severe weather threat. Probably a little more limited than today. But again, into that I-35 corridor of Texas, a couple of these storms could become strong to severe. To the north of there, just a whole lot of heavy rain into Oklahoma, Kansas, and ongoing just incredible amounts of snow falling through Colorado and New Mexico. And then that is a trend that continues. Finally, snow will pull north as our low pressure finally pulls north and really develops at the surface here. By the time we get into Friday afternoon and then overnight Friday into Saturday, again, you'll notice clearing out through West Texas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. Snow still lingering into Colorado, but slowly pulling northward here as we go into the weekend. Well, how much snow is expected? This is now through Saturday morning. So in Colorado, you'll actually even add more to this before all is said and done. But I wanted to show just the next 48 hours. And you'll notice, again, still a foot of snow possible here from Castle Rock down to Colorado Springs. And even this entire corridor to the east of there as well. Maybe another half a foot to 8 inches of snow into the Denver area over the next couple of days. We go south of there, though, and this is where the real winters are. It's into these higher terrains of southeastern Colorado. Trinidad, 35 inches of snow still expected just over the next 2 days. So, just really incredible amounts of snow to the south of there, where these mountains get really tall. We're talking 50 plus inches of snow just over a 2-day period. And same story down into New Mexico, just incredible amounts of snowfall. Again, 50 plus inches into the highest terrains into northeastern New Mexico. But still snow down into Santa Fe, half a foot to a foot still to come. Albuquerque, another inch of snow. And then even the mountains on the other side of the state, on the western half, going to pick up a foot plus of snow into these highest elevations. So really just an incredible snowstorm with some incredible impacts on the horizon. All right, let's talk about the east here outside of kind of that area. So this afternoon, again, the story is going to be continuing rainfall into the low country of South Carolina and then into southeastern Georgia. You'll notice this band of rain still kind of working on through, bringing plenty of precipitation and some showers even up into the central part of the Carolinas. The Charlotte area, Columbia, up towards Raleigh could definitely see a shower or two this afternoon. Not a washout, I think, in those areas. The real washout will be Charleston, down towards Beaufort and into the Savannah area. But really anywhere in the Carolinas could see some showers. Now, you will notice that band of precipitation kind of breaks up a little bit and just becomes a lot more scattered in nature this evening and overnight tonight. Really anywhere through the mid-Atlantic, or really honestly anywhere that is still in this warm sector here that we talked about earlier, could see a couple of showers. Anyone in Florida could see some showers today as well. And then we get into tomorrow afternoon. Check this out. Another bump up of precipitation right into the Columbia area. Again, it's all due to just kind of this unfortunate lingering tropical air mass. And anytime you get a little bit of a ripple above that lingering air mass that creates some lift, you get another band of precipitation to rain. So the good news is, it's raining, and we said we needed some rain. Unfortunately, it's been a little bit more rain than we wanted at once. But this will help, tamper down the potential drought that could have continued to become a problem here. In fact, I think Columbia went almost 40 days without rain, so we'll definitely take it. This gets us into Friday afternoon. And we are going to see a bit of a front swing through the northeast right around here. You'll notice this is Friday morning. We do have this troughing indicating a bit of a cold front working on through, and we could see some squally weather, whether that be rain or snow. Look at this Friday afternoon swinging on through the northeast. Definitely could be something that we, need to watch out for over the weekend, or at least the start of the weekend through Friday evening. And then this gets us into overnight Friday into Saturday. Again, still raining down towards the Gulf Coast due to that tropical air mass. Here's our low pressure, and then just a big plume of moisture on the northern side of that, which allows us to kind of zoom out a little bit. And I'll mention, I didn't show the west through the 48-hour time frame because really there is nothing outside of our Rocky Mountain storm that I just talked about. So again, I'm going to skip that segment today, but I'm going to zoom things out and see the entire country. So here we go. This is kind of where we picked up. This is overnight Friday into Saturday. Here's our big low pressure. Again, still bringing ongoing snow into Colorado, even up into Wyoming, bringing heavy rainfall on the other side, and then that severe weather threat Friday afternoon and evening as we talked about. But as we go through the weekend, the storm lifts north, occludes pretty quickly, so kind of hits max strength really quickly, and then occludes, and by the time we get into this weekend, really just some scattered showers from Saturday into Sunday through the Midwest, down into the east central part of the country. Not expecting much of a severe weather threat with this. Now, a couple isolated severe storms, sure, it's possible, but not a whole lot of kinematic support here to support any major severe weather. And then look at this, some of that rain even crosses east, and I think early next week this will kind of bring the start of a small pattern change of sorts. A lot of these storms have gotten stuck out west recently. I do think in the future here, these storms are going to kind of start to cross the entire country as a whole, even if they're not at their max strength over the east. Should at least be strong enough to get precipitation east of the Appalachia chain. That's exactly what you're seeing here. This is overnight Sunday. Scattered showers through the northeast, the mid-Atlantic, and into the southeast. And we even get a front to kind of cross the area. And you'll notice here, by the time we get into early next week, here's that front. We do have a little bit of troughing in the east. And the way I can tell is look at these red isobars here, or isotherms, I guess is probably the better way, or the really height contours, actually. But either way, you notice that they're kind of dipping south here. That indicates to me that that front did cross the country as a whole, and will bring some cooler air to the east. And that might just be the start of it, folks. Another big storm next week. This one, again, looks to be quite strong, quite powerful about a week out from now. I would say some of the lowest pressure values we've seen so far this fall. And this could bring, quite a feisty squall line with it. And this one could bring a much more powerful cold front, I think, as this becomes much more negatively tilted in nature. As we go about a week from now, notice how that crosses the entire country and brings what looks to be some pretty impactful weather. And we can see that in the upper levels as well. In our ensemble members, our height values over the next little bit. This is our current storm this weekend. You'll notice that blue dot over the central plains. That crosses through, and by the time we get into early next week, a little bit of troughing again here. You'll notice some of these ISO or these height contours rather are dipping south, indicating a bit of a flux of some cooler air. But watch what happens later next week. A much bigger trough, a stronger trough becomes negatively tilted. That tells me that the storm associated with it could become quite strong. And this is also going to bring much stronger cold air advection. So you'll notice a much more pronounced dip in the jet stream down here and dip in those height values. Much cooler pocket of air about a week from now, likely to cross through the eastern half of the country. And then that one, again, really could cool things down. And then in the long run, another big storm out west. And should that one do the same and these storms continue to cross the east, we'll see much more active times here into the future. And you can even see that on our temperature map. Again, very warm currently. We do get a bit of a cool down this weekend and into early next week. You'll notice some cold air damming setting up there with some blue along the Appalachia chain. And then obviously that front I mentioned that kind of swings on through New England over the next couple of days, bringing some cooler temperatures. Then we warm up again early next week. But behind that big front that moves on through, you'll notice much more average to below average temperatures about 7 to 10 days from now, working on through the eastern half of the country. And then again, a big dip of cool air out west will warm up again in the east, but signs are that potentially in the long run, 10 to 15 days, another big storm system, another big front could swing on through. And obviously that is something that we would hope for. Now, because of these big fronts swinging on through and hopefully getting further across the country and kind of being cross-country lows, as I like to call them, we do have increased precipitation chances really through the entire country, at least at normal chances of precipitation to above average chances. So definitely good news there. That should help to alleviate any major drought concerns and hopefully just make things a little bit more active for us in the east, where it has not been a very exciting fall so far. Alrighty, folks. Well, that's all I got for you on this Thursday. Again, hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, let me know by liking the video, hitting the subscribe button, hitting that bell for the latest notifications. Again, it's free, so don't have to worry about paying for anything. And yeah, that's all I got for you. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.